Joining me now is South Dakota Senator Mike Rounds, a member of the Senate Armed Services, Intelligence, Banking, and Urban Affairs Committees. Good to see you, Senator. Thanks very much. Once again, the White House is blaming companies, this time grocers, grocery companies, for inflation and not their own $7 trillion in spending over the last 3 years.
Look, it's not just the spending. There's another side to it as well, and that's the supply side. What they've also done is restricted the amount of energy that we can be producing. It shows up when you talk about gasoline prices up 37% since Biden took office. Energy prices itself way up. You're talking about groceries that are up over 20%. You're talking electricity that's up over 27%. So this is Bidenomics, in practice. Bottom line on it is that we've got to get back to actually producing more energy, reducing the price of energy, reducing the price of the supply chain costs itself. And then you can also talk about the demand side, where they have fueled this economy with federal spending, and the vast majority of it, over $5.8 trillion, was done on a partisan basis, and they're still feeding it out into the economy.
Well, I mean, that's the issue, and that's why he's down so much in the polls. Karine, you've been dealing with this, talking about inflation. Is this young people's biggest issue right now, or something else?
Well, I think that cost of living and definitely rent is important. If you look at the latest inflation report, rent numbers are up, and that's really hard for young people. But a lot of this is by design, for example, look at costly energy policies that this administration has implemented for its climate goals. Electricity prices are up 5% in this last inflation report. But this administration keeps pushing Americans towards costly electrification, whether EVs or heat pumps and all of these different measures, and it's really hurting people at home.
And that's what point you're making, Senator, right? I mean, it's not just $7 trillion in borrowing and spending. It's the climate change agenda and this move to shut down fossil fuels that has legs everywhere, and it impacts so much in terms of the supply side of the economy.
It does, and the reason why the folks out there, the families that are out there that are feeling this, the average family across the entire United States, their average cost of living is up over $1,008 per month. You can't sustain that type of an increase. Wages aren't keeping up. In fact, wages are going down about 4% since Biden took office. So when you start talking about those types of numbers, you can see the reason why he can talk about it being successful. The bottom line is people are feeling it, and when people feel those types of things, you can't get away from it. The American people aren't dumb. They understand exactly what's going on, and it's Bidenomics which is causing the problem.
Well, I mean,
you can't get away from that.
There's also foreign policy, and then there's also this lawlessness and this lawfare that the administration is using against their #1 political opponent, Donald Trump. We saw the memo that the White House approved deadly force to be used by the FBI when the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago. What was your reaction to that?
I just heard about that last evening, and honestly, look, we've seen the FBI use some tough tactics in the past in some areas. I just wish they were using it on the southern border. When you take a look at what's happened on the southern border and the problems we're having down there, they're letting those folks in. And we don't talk about it a lot, but we've got probably over 1.5 million getaways. Those are the folks that we are certain came through the border, and chasing them down has been next to impossible. But when you've got 10 million people that have entered this country without permission to do so, and yet they're in and they've been caught and they've been released, they're out in the communities today, that creates a problem. And the FBI, we're talking about the FBI and what their tactics are. We need them out there rounding these folks up. When you got 1.5 million out there right now, that are in communities, and these are the folks that tried to get away and were successful in getting away.
Right.
That makes a lot of us really concerned about the safety of our communities.
I understand, but I haven't seen any memos with the White House approving deadly force on any of that. I mean, deadly force. What does that mean? If the person resists, then it's okay to kill the person? I mean, it's pretty extraordinary. Deadly force. Yeah,
good question. And the question is was that different than what you would normally do with any sort of a normal type of program where you're serving an arrest warrant?
Okay. Yeah.
And if they're treating their political competitors, their political opponents different than everybody else, then we've got a real problem in this country. And I think that's the reason why you've got a lot of people concerned about those types of activities.
Well, there's also foreign policy. President Biden apparently is rejecting the International Criminal Court's request for arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other Israeli leaders over what they said were alleged human rights violations. Former National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien and other top allies of former President Trump met with Netanyahu following the ICC's announcement. Senator, your reaction?
Yeah, look, the ICC is not recognized by us and nor by Israel. And this is one of the reasons, in fact, we've actually made it very, very clear that the president cannot accept the ICC without going through the formal Senate approval process, which would be in the form of a treaty, which is exactly the way that this kind of activity should be. The ICC in this particular case is trying to treat Israel and Hamas the same. You're talking about a democracy that was under attack. You're talking about, on the other side of it, a known terrorist organization, and the ICC is treating them the same.
Right.
That's just wrong, and it points out the fallacies behind the ICC and the reason that we can't recognize them.
Unbelievable. Senator, it's great to have you this morning. Thanks very much.
Thank you.